from a lot of previous folks that I've spoken to previously, whenever I ask them how they've moved from India to abroad when it comes to designing, a lot of them say that they've gotten the opportunity through referrals, right? But very few of them say that they actually applied through the interview, went through the interview process, and went through all of that. So, what was your process? How did you start with your journey at Omeo?
So it's about being very strategic.
Right.
So you sort of it's you don't blindly apply to any company. I think there are certain companies where referrals might work better because there are certain companies where there's so many resumes that enter their inbox every day. If your resume sort of climbs up, then it's good, right? A referral helps you with that. But for me, I was being very strategic that I was targeting countries that were more immigration friendly. So the US was not in my list at all. Everybody knows that there are immigration issues with the US. You have to wait ages for a visa, and even if you do get a visa, you might just lose that visa in 3 years because that's, I think, the limit for the visa. You have to renew it.
Yeah.
So I was not. I would have loved to work in the US. There's some pretty great companies out of there, and a lot of great people that I know who work there. But that was out of the question. So now I was left with Europe, and basically Europe because I was looking at what are the other big startup hubs, and it was basically Berlin and Amsterdam in Europe that are one of the big startup hubs. Now I started looking at both of these startup hubs and looking at which companies have raised funding recently and are expanding. So that means these companies are actively hiring and they really need people. So, and if you're a company that is expanding really quickly, that means expanding really quickly and has funding. That means you can sponsor a visa more likely. So all of these factors sort of came together, and I started applying very strategically. Because the thing is, if you apply blindly as well, you would just get a lot of rejections, and they are also very disheartening. When you just keep getting rejections over and over again, it's just frustrating. So just be more strategic from the get-go. Now, number two, what I did was I tried to make sure that my portfolio it's very old. If you see the link that I have, it's something that I made 3 years ago. I haven't updated it much, but it has a lot of flaws. But what it does well is this: it gives you a very quick glance into the breadth of my work. Now, not a glance into my work, right? That's what I'm emphasizing here. So that I felt was very important because the viewer, the end user of this website is a recruiter, not an actual designer.
Yeah.
Now, how do I make it easily understandable for a recruiter? If you're a designer, if it looks half decent, they will judge you on that as well. But they don't necessarily want to know about your life history because they will see that on your resume or on other places as well, or even on your LinkedIn. So the first thing you see is my work. You just see me, you see my face, you see me saying hello, and you see my work. So that's just my hypothesis. I'm not sure if this is something that works for everyone, but I thought it made a lot of sense because I thought, who is the end user of my website? End user of my website is a recruiter. They're going to look at it for a maximum of 1 minute, and most of them would just look at it for 30 seconds. So how can I make it glanceable for that? If I write a case study that's 2 pages long, that's great. The person who's going to like it is the person who's eventually going to hire you once you get an interview. But to get that interview, I had to work on this. So my process for interviewing is the website gets me through the door. But then once I actually have an interview, I do not show my website as my portfolio. I actually have a keynote presentation where I sort of use that for case studies. And because there's fewer words there, whenever you're presenting something, it's better to talk and have fewer words and to show what you are trying to show there. and this keynote is sort of changes according to the position I'm applying to. So if it's the kind of company that would appreciate a certain kind of project I did in the past, I put that in the keynote versus something else. So I think all of these together have helped me uh, in the interviewing process, because this has been my process when I got to Omeo, and now recently when I got my new job at Center.
That's really nice of you to share your strategy like this, because man, I myself have not heard this strategy before, and this is listening to this and thinking about it is like, man, you really put some thought before just being like, okay, I'm done with India, I'm just going to go abroad, but how will I do that? This is something which is that goes in the back end, but people don't really think about it. And about your keynote, do you update it, do you keep updating it, or do you have it one prepared and you just tweak it around?
Uh, yeah, actually, uh, I made one. I made one 2 years ago. I did not use the same keynote for Omeo, but right after Omeo, I made another one, and I've been using that format. But I just add new case studies to that same sort of structure, visual structure. I'm kind of happy with it. It's very minimal, so I don't need a lot of aesthetic to it. What I do is that uh, actually, I just, whenever the slides for a particular project come, or a startup, whatever that I previously worked with, I just use that branding, sort of that aesthetic, to make it just look consistent with that. But that's pretty much it.
Got it. That's great.